Okay, we're live and I'm about a minute early, so I'm going to be setting up a little bit, putting on my shirt. So today we are talking about the yes to no spectrum. Oops. Oh, oops. Oops. That was a repeat of my YouTube video on live. And so now you can hear me doubly. Sorry about that. And we're talking about the yes to no spectrum today. And I have some slides that I'd like to share with you. So the yes to no spectrum, just so you're aware, my name is Ray from Ray Life Coaching, and I am a confidence coming out coach. And what that means is that I help people come out authentically, and coming out could mean LGBTQ plus, polyamorous relationship structure, but it could also mean something that you're like, my life is not going the way I thought it was going to be. I don't agree with a whole bunch of things happening, and I've been saying yes or just been not talking about what isn't right. And I don't know how to do this differently. And how do I be more confident and clear about my decisions, um, and show myself authentically? What does authentic even mean? So the topic today is the yes to no spectrum, which is part of the consent work in my confidence toolkit. You just go online, go to raylifecoaching.com, and you're going to see free resources tab. Click on that, get signed up, and you'll get a free confidence toolkit for people pleasers, which will help you really have a systematic way, tools that you can practice on a daily basis. It's meant for a morning or night, or when you're in that state of theta, alpha waves, when you're rest and digest, relaxed, so that you practice it when you're calm, um, for times that you're not calm, so that you have it on hand, on the ready, instead of um, freaking out, which is what we do. Or we just go into automatic mode, right? And we freeze, fawn, we do our coping mechanism that is not working. However, you know, it served us. It serves to keep us in safe mode, but it might not be doing the best for us long term. And the more we're in that state of rest and digest, which is really the confident state, we can start to choose wisely, start to come from that real deep intuitive self of knowing. So, that being said, again, we're doing the yes to no spectrum, and it is meant to help guide you inward to that inner knowing and that felt sense. So, we're gonna share some slides with you. Let's get started. Let's just make sure everybody is on board. Okay. Okay. So let me share my screen with you. Which one do I want to choose here? Let's choose. Oh, over here. Sorry about that. This is taking me longer than I would like. Okay. There you are. Okay. So let's share that. Now I'm gonna also just make sure I share uh myself on the side, if you can see. Just a little smaller. Okay. Here we go. Okay, so here we are. We got don't shut up, just stand up. So that is like the whole premise um of my workshop today. Break the people-pleasing loop with the yes to no spectrum by getting back to what a yes, no, maybe even feels like and what we've been telling ourselves to get there. Okay, so my name is again Ray from Ray Life Coaching, and I'm the founder of Ray Life Coaching LLC, Remember Authentic You, Confidence Coming Out Coach, which I had explained before. So I came out as polyamorous almost 10 years ago and non-binary pansexual. I learned NVC language and consent practices and attachment theory in order to help myself, but also to help others like me stand up for their unique selves in a world that might not agree with the beliefs or way of living and all of that that you do, and build a life they love, build a business they love, build relationships they love, have family chosen or biological where they're really communicating and working through problems or holding boundaries. So today, why are we here in the first place? Well, we are here um, today is about awareness, and it's not about judgment. And you'll notice every workshop that I do, it's saying that for you. Please, this is not about labeling what's going on with you. It's about understanding so that you can face what's happening with you instead of um, believing that it's the end, that you can't move in any direction. We first have to find out where we are in order to move forward. It's like pinpointing ourselves on the map first. So I invite you to take what really works for you here and leave the rest, because just like life, sometimes you read a book, right? And you get something out of it, and then you pick it up 10 years later and you get something completely different. So understand that in this moment, you're picking up what you need to pick up. And we'll talk a little bit about that, about how the brain works and how all this stuff works. So just allow yourself to take in what really is meant for you right now and drop your intention into the chat. So if you're here, if you've watched it, if you are just gonna clear this out. If you are in the space of um watching it after the fact, please just put in the comments. I will be looking at them. I will also make sure to comment on them. And I'll just make sure. I feel like I'm missing something here. Yeah, I'm gonna just stop sharing for a moment because, oh, there you are. Because I'm feeling like I'm missing something. Okay. So why are we here? I just wanted to make sure that we're all understanding we are here to learn, right? So what are you learning, wanting to learn today? What sparked your interest when you looked at this video of yes to no spectrum and stopping the loop of cycles or a life that might not be going the way you thought, wanting to come out as your true authentic self? And how do you do that? Through your language, through your inner body of understanding what choices are right for you. Okay, let's move on. Oops, sorry. And let's share the screen again, but with self in there. Okay. So we're going to do that again and just view. Okay, and we're going to move on to the next stage. So the agenda for today is the main topics. We're going to have a quick quiz, very quick quiz. How do you deal with boundaries in the first place? And so you probably were like, I didn't know this this video or this workshop was going to be about boundaries, and it kind of is. It's the beginning stages of understanding your boundaries, a felt sense of boundaries at first, then your ability to communicate what is coming out of your mind and your words, that will tell you something about the yes to no spectrum, will guide you in a direction connected to your felt sense. And how does this so that will be the first thing. We'll kind of talk about how you even deal with boundaries, and that will kind of gauge where you're at with the yes to no spectrum. How does this work? Like, why am I even doing this? How does this kind of work that I do, which is kind of help you get out of the loop, the cycle of dealing with people, your problems, your future, your past, the same way over and over again, and feeling like I can't seem to get out of this loop. I know I should be doing this. I keep on doing this, and I keep on getting the same relationships. Why is that? So we're going to talk about why that is. How does this relate to the confidence toolkit, which is what I have for free on my website? Just go to raylifecoaching.com/free-resources, and you can get your confidence toolkit right now. What is consent? So we're going to talk about how consent is related to the yes to no spectrum, but also your boundaries and confidence. And we're just going to play with a little bit of that information. What is the yes to no spectrum? And how can we use it? And what does attachment styles how does it come into play? And why should we even talk about that? So we're going to have Q&A and what you can do next after this mini workshop. Okay. So your quick quiz. How do you deal with boundaries? Reminder, this is just a starting point. And so whatever you choose, don't label yourself or shame yourself around it. Understand, be compassionate, empathetic. A lot of us are dealing with this, especially now with the climate of today, having a lot more conflict and controversy and black and white thinking, and having to deal with our communications is becoming a real problem. So here's 3 options that you could choose from or not. So decide which one might be more you. So how do you deal with boundaries? Number 1, you tend to say yes, even when you don't want to, unsure how to say no without feeling guilty. When others set boundaries, it can feel personal. You often need explanation to feel reassured. Number 2, you prefer to keep emotional distance by setting firm, non-negotiable limits. You're comfortable with others doing the same as long as it stays logical and not emotionally charged. Words often feel unnecessary. Number 3, you struggle to trust others' boundaries, watching closely for signs of inconsistency or rejection. When hurt or pushed too far, you may respond with emotional outbursts or ultimatums to protect yourself, or you just like cut off completely. So we're going to talk about these 3 different types of ways of dealing with boundaries. So the first is really barely having boundaries, not really knowing where your limits are. You're pretty much saying yes and not asking yourself what you need. You're not paying attention to your needs. Number 2 is kind of the complete opposite of that. You might not be having like small boundaries along the way. You might not even be saying what your needs are, or you may, but you may also not be paying attention to anybody else's needs. Like, if anything, you may be more concerned about yourself, while the first one's more concerned about others, right? They're outward focused. Number 2 is more inward focused. And they may not be talking a lot about what they need, or what's going on for them. So all of a sudden they'll just set a boundary really big, and it might be a surprise to everybody else. And they might not say it, they might just do it. And so they expect the same kind of thing in return. So they don't get really like as confused by that behavior, because that is their behavior. Number 3 is a combination of the 2. And because it's the combination of the two, they're seeking a lot of information outside of them in order to make decisions for themselves. But then when things get a little too close, and they feel charged emotionally, they might do what number two would do, which is just totally separate. Number three is way more communicative, but in a very emotionally charged way. So their boundaries get set in an emotional charge rather than just a flat, see, no response, and cut off. Boundary is action for number two. Okay, so how does this work? Emotions rule the subconscious, and the subconscious rules you. Okay, so let me say that again. Your emotions rule your subconscious, and your subconscious then rules you. So what rules you? If you do the math, your emotions, right? Okay, so only 5% of your decision making is conscious, like actually conscious, and that's being generous. The other 95% is subconscious. That subconscious is ruled by your emotions, not your logic. Even smart or rational decisions are driven by your emotions, your emotional patterns, and your learned beliefs. So we're going to talk about your emotions, really, and where they're coming from, and how a yes and a no might feel different, and a maybe. Okay. So now neuroscience explains your choices. And I know I had explained before that, or said something about how, um, you do this one thing and then you do this other thing. And, or like you want to do this one thing, but you keep on doing this other thing, or you keep on getting this same result. But your conscious mind wants to do this 5% thing, right? Like it knows it should be doing this thing. Your subconscious is ruling your actual actions and your behavior and your emotions. So the RES, the reticular activating system, is the filter of how you see the world. And that filter really is from your subconscious, whether you like it or not. That filter is also being graded by your emotions and your beliefs. Like your emotional patterns and your learned beliefs are what creating that filter. So when you start to change or adapt or learn to communicate with your subconscious, your filter also changes. You're opening the filter or closing it, whatever you want to call it. So your autonomic nervous system has two main branches. This is sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So the sympathetic is the one where you're, stressed out pretty much. You're anxious, you're insecure, you're in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode. And it's where your coping mechanisms are born to fulfill needs with actions or behaviors that are really providing cookie crumbs to those needs. Like they're not really fulfilling them, but it's like the quickest way to get that in. And sometimes your fight, flight, and freeze and fawn mode are those. They're a way of like keeping you in survive so that you will survive. And obviously when you're in real deep threat, that makes sense. But a lot of the time we're in sympathetic nervous system when we're not really in a horrible threat. It might be just that someone isn't listening to us, or someone isn't giving us space, or someone says something that's inconsistent and makes us not trust them, right? But we might do the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response instead of rest and digest, be able to have a regulated, secure response. So the RES is how you see things. The autonomic nervous system is really how you respond to how you see things. And they're kind of connected, right? They're pretty much connected. They're your neurobiology. So we're going to talk about how this works again. the blueprint to hardwiring your beliefs, behaviors, and fulfilling your needs. So what this is about is that you have these tools. We know some things about our subconscious, and if we learn from how the subconscious creates, hardwires all our beliefs and behaviors and our emotional responses, then we can use that and kind of, what is that? Not engineer, backtrack, engineer, and use it to our advantage to make some changes in our lives toward getting back to rest and digest, for one, and also being able to start to reprogram ourselves. So the familiar framework that I created is about how we really get it hardwired in the beginning of our lives and moving forward. So F stands for firsthand experiences, A stands for auditory experiences, and M stands for modeled experiences. And those are the three ways that we consistently will get a belief or behavior and a feeling towards something ingrained in us. So if you keep on, like, I had this really horrible example where I hate diet soda, but I also saw a lot of people who went from non-diet soda to diet soda back in the 80s. And they just drank a lot of diet soda until they liked it. It's almost like that's a firsthand experience, right? That's you just actually that's an ER. But if you see someone do that, then you learn, right? So that's a familiar where it's like I'm not first-handing it, but I'm seeing it modeled and I've learned over time, oh, that works, right? So but how ERs work to rewire your ANS, which is your autonomic nervous system, is that there's two ERs. The first one is emotion plus repetition. So as I explained, if you repeat something over and over again, eventually it gets ingrained. And if you use emotion, not just consistency and repetition, but you use emotion, like you associate it with something really strong in emotion, then it will get ingrained, whether good or bad. Doesn't matter what the emotion is. It just has to be a strong emotion. The second ER is emotional regulation. And the emotional regulation is really how to kind of deprogram yourself. So in another video, we can talk about emotional regulation. I think it's really important for all of us to learn how to do that. It's like one of the biggest things. Ban and bias keys. I have a video and you can click on this slide, which I will be providing to anybody who is a part of my email list. And you can click on the slide and get to the video. It is on my YouTube and probably still on my Facebook channel. And you can find it there. Use neuroscience to teach your subconscious to trust it. Trust it. So that's what we're talking about now. Some of the things that we can do, understanding familiar, understanding the ERs, understanding ban and bias, which you can see my video for that. Okay, familiar and the ERs, which we described. So that just gives you more details on that. Okay, how does this relate to the confidence toolkit that I provide? So you can click here. Get out of here. See if it'll allow me. How do I do that? Yeah, if you click here, let me actually go to the website because it's not giving me that option. And to go to free resources, you can go to my confidence toolkit and just download it and put in your information. Okay. And then, and so the confidence toolkit requires consent. And consent usually requires an answer, right? And information in order to get to an answer. And yes and no spectrum is all about that. So you're more likely to abuse a power dynamic if you don't believe you have any power. This is from Mia Shaster, my teacher, Consent Wizardry, and Share the Load Incorporated. Confidence requires consent because without the belief that you have power, you're more likely to react from fear, control, or self-abandonment. Fear, control, or self-abandonment. Okay, so when you believe your power is real and worthy, you can express it with clarity, integrity, and care, which is always helpful because otherwise people don't know, they don't know, what you don't tell them. If emotions drive your choices, isn't it essential to know how yes and no, or maybe feels in your body to make confident, conscious decisions? So remember me saying that emotions drive like pretty much all of your decisions because 95% of it is from your subconscious and only 5% is from your conscious, mind. Um, so wouldn't it make sense to know why on an emotional level you are saying yes, no, and maybe? That will start to help you if you know that language because it's a subconscious language. Emotions are a subconscious language, and your subconscious rules 95% of your life. So why not? Um, so it is essential to make confident, consensual, and conscious decisions. That's why tool 3 of the confidence toolkit, which is the containerize. And this is what the yes to no spectrum is in. It's in the confidence toolkit on the 3rd tool of containerize. And it helps you identify and embody your limits. So you can recognize your internal signals. And your internal signals, one of them is your emotions. There are others. And set clear standards and honor your non-negotiables with integrity, which your non-negotiables are your like hard boundaries, meaning like you don't have a ton of negotiation around them. Like I am pretty much not wanting to be around people who call me names. I definitely am not going to be around someone who wants to hit me, right? Like there might be some non-negotiables that you have. So what is consent? So I'm putting containerize there because that is the 3rd tool of the confidence toolkit. Consent is a continuous and pragmatic method of communication involving regular check-ins with oneself and others to discuss boundaries, capabilities, and available resources. And notice how I said check-ins, communication. It's a communication method. That is what consent is. It entails a commitment to attentive listening that extends beyond verbal expression to include body language, gaze, prosody, and other subtle and often unconscious cues. Consent serves as a journey toward self-awareness, functioning as a language that can be embraced and manifested in one's actions. The embodiment of consent reflects a fluency in this language. So really embodying it, yes, consent can come from how you say things, what you say, how you feel, what you exude, what you do. Like there's a lot of layers of consent. And we're just going to go into a little bit of it. A lot of it's unseen, right? So what we used to think of consent had mostly to do with sex. This is not really about sex at all, but sex brings it up right in your face, right? So that can make it really easy for people in their mind. They think it's easier with sex, the topic of sex, but it isn't. It isn't, because if you're not able to communicate in or even listen to yourself about what you need, and that's consent with self, then it's going to be really hard to do that with others. So consent at one point was like just permission. Well, that's on the top. Like that's just asking, right? Then there's contracts, like actual contracts, and there's no just means no. And then there's all these other things underneath the iceberg, under the water and frozen, that people don't That's the subconscious, really. That's really, if you really look at that, that's subconscious. So Planned Parenthood has a definition. Some of it we altered. One of it is named the E of fries and embodied instead of I forget what it is, enthusiastic. So I don't exactly believe in the enthusiastic. A lot of the time I say yes. It's because we're going to talk about this on the yes to no spectrum. Sometimes you say yes and you're kind of like, yeah, we'll see. I can change my mind, right? Freely given, reversible. You can change your mind. Informed, you have the information. You can ask for the information you need along the way too, because as time goes on, things may change. You'll be like, hey, I need more information. Embodied means like, I think embodied is actually confidence, in a lot of ways. It's like, this is enthusiastic. No, I'm confident. And confident doesn't always feel, you know, it's just kind of neutral. It's not, hey, yes, I'm so excited, or oh no, definitely not. It's kind of in this wiggle room, in this gray area. Um, okay, so I'm just going to read a little bit off of this. Freely given for the top of fries. No coercion or no pressure. The person is equally empowered to say yes or no. And that equally is a hard one, right? Because of power dynamics. That's a whole nother layer. And that's in that iceberg somewhere. One of those power dynamics is there. Reversible. You can change your mind. Oh yeah, I didn't say the gray zone. This is always a power dynamic situation. Okay. So reversible. You can change your mind. Just because you started doesn't mean you have to finish. And I think a lot of the time we feel that way with pretty much everything. We said yes, maybe a year ago, and then it comes by our way and we feel obligated. We don't have to. We can allow ourselves to change our minds. The information you need, the information you need to give consent is provided, such as how many people are in the event, where is it, and what is expected of you when you attend. Like there's so many questions you may have, but you might not know what those questions are until you're like halfway in it. And that's okay. That's why it's reversible, right? Or changeable. Embodied. So this way enthusiastic, but that it's unrealistic. It may be a people-pleasing reflex, the enthusiasm of a responsive yes or whatever. We are connected, present, and give time to carefully consider how we feel. I consider this embodied part of consent is the confidence part. It is the secure part. And we're going to talk about that in attachment theory at the end. But, and I'm just going to preface how we said 5% and 95% and the familiar. There's a lot of tie-ins between all this information. And the tie-in is confidence and intuition and embodiment, being secure, that calm, rest, and digest. And there's something else. I know there was something else. But all of these are synonymous almost. They're like the gray zone. And I would actually say in the yes, no, and maybe, where confidence lies is probably more in the maybe. It's in this place of like, curiosity. So I'll just leave that with you to kind of ponder. But okay, so specific. This is about what is specifically involved when agreeing to something. For example, when I go to a party with you, who is driving? Who will be there? For how many? So this is becoming, more specific on what you need to be informed. So they kind of go hand in hand a little bit. Here we go. Here's the yes to no spectrum. And this is from my teacher, Mia Shaster from Share the Load, or no, I'm forgetting the other name. I'll remember it in 5 seconds. So as you can see, we have yes to the left and middle is maybe, and to the right is no. and uncomfortable is between yes and maybe, and unsafe is between maybe and no. And this is slightly, it's more like when you start saying these things out loud or in your head, and some of them are, I should do this, deferring to someone else's judgment, backtracking, explaining, and justifying why you should be doing something, right? If I do or don't do, then this will happen to me because of others, right? So when your thoughts and your feelings probably guide into that direction, start to think about what will they think of me, and it's about them instead of about you, then it becomes unsafe. Then you have put your power into somebody else's hands except for yours. And whenever you do that, it's ultimately unsafe for you. So that's why we're saying that the side of going toward no is unsafe. And that's when you know that you're closer to a no. Let's just say that. Okay. There are also internal body reactions to these phrases, right? So noticing those in reaction to your words, how you're thinking, what your story is saying will also help you. Because if you're tensing up and feeling really like, oh, maybe it's just not time yet. You know, if you're putting all of your attention onto something else, maybe how do you change that up and spark some curiosity? It doesn't always mean it's a no. It just means the way you're thinking about it is very unsafe for you. Okay. Doesn't always mean it's a no. Let me say that again. It just means the way you're currently thinking about it may be unsafe for you. And when you start moving yourself toward the curiosity stage, is when you start to, yes, feel uncomfortable. So you'll notice that on the yes spectrum, you have the uncomfortable side, and that will, it's uncomfortable because it might be unknown, you know, a lot of unknowns. It also means that you have to be responsible for your own power, right? Your independence, your autonomy. Um, Independence, you'll notice that we have codependence and independence. I would also say sometimes the yes could not be a good thing, right? You could be saying yes, and be more counter dependent, instead of interdependent. So we just have independent here. What would that feel like to me? Okay, so this is saying that the comfortable, they're like more to the yes side. The uncomfortable stage may be uncomfortable when you're starting to focus on yourself. It also may be uncomfortable when you're starting to move from others to yourself. There's this teeter-totter, right? That's happening. So on the yes spectrum, you've got curiosity, learn something new, and challenge or risk. And you might have to weigh your options. How worth it is it to me? What is the reason that I'm doing this? And some of the questions that arise on the bottom are how to spark curiosity. I wonder what it would be like if. Will I regret not doing it if, if I don't? Um, Now the worry about fitting in on the right for the no spectrum is about others, right? We're focusing outward more than we're focusing on our internal self. What will they think of me if? What will happen to me if I? So notice these questions. And whenever you're starting to focus so much on other people and worrying about that and starting to have these phrases, notice how your body is feeling in that moment too, because that will tell you something. And gauging your story with your internal body, you'll notice that there will be a pattern, but it also will help you go, okay, let's stop and ask myself the right question because I'm focusing too much outside of myself. Um, and I wonder what it would be like if, will I regret doing that? What would that feel like to me if I did that? Um, and then you can actually deal with the consequences that might arise, right? Because it might be a hard choice. Okay. So hopefully that gets a little ingrained. We're going to do a little bit of an exercise here. How can we use it in containerize, which is the third tool of the confidence toolkit? So I want you to think of a story or a scenario that you knew a yes or no, or maybe like you were like, yep. And what happened before, during, and after that you needed to know for informed consent? Were there things that you learned afterward? And what would have made it more of a yes or a no? Okay. So I'm going to try to, out of the blue, give you an example from my life, I guess. And very simply, someone asks me um, to do them a favor, um, and it directly conflicts with my needs, directly conflicts. So my first instinct when they ask me is like, absolutely no, right? Okay, so what happens before, during, and after that I would have needed to know for informed consent? Okay, so this is a deep question. So what happens before is the kind of relationship that I might have had with this person, right? So that before information was, I have to assess like, oh, why is it I'm instantly not wanting to give them this favor? But also, what are my needs? Like honest, to be really honest with myself. And so we're going to ask this question. What would that feel like to me if I gave them that favor, right? If I said yes to this favor, what would that feel like to me if I said no? What would that feel like if I said maybe, but I need more information, right? And if I'm saying more of like, what will they think of me? Will they hate me forever and I'll never see them again? Right? Then that is all the way over there. And we need to stay a little bit more here so that we at least know what our needs are, right? So my answer to that question was, what would that feel like to me if I said yes to giving them that favor of um, not going to this event or whatever, because they didn't want me to go and whatever. And I would say, okay, yeah, it would feel really not fair. I feel imbalance. Like I feel um it's not really a feeling, but taken advantage of or whatever, like then there's not mutual reciprocity here or whatever. Um and what would it feel like if I um did go and I know that, or that I just didn't answer the question, or that I said I can't, give you that favor? Then yeah, it would feel really kind of hard. Uncomfortable probably would be the question, would be where I would land on that. So isn't that interesting, right? Like when you start to say, oh, it's uncomfortable, but it's something I need, So you can be in that space of really uncomfortable and maybe even like frustrated and annoyed. You can have all the bad feelings in a yes, meaning like can have all the bad feelings in a space of being like yes to self, right? So in this moment, you're saying yes to self, um, but you might be saying no to them or to a situation. So what would you need in that situation to be more of a yes, no, or maybe? So in that situation, like before I was given quite a lot of information about their need, right? I would have actually probably needed more of them to see me too. I think if had they said, I know, like I can only assume that you're really interested, like to actually to come at that discussion with a little bit of more curiosity about why I'm even wanting to go to this event, right? That would have helped me feel seen, and that mutuality would have been helped to been even out a little bit. So that's more of the during. The after, once I maybe had my answer, it would have been nice for them to do, you know, that probably. So, and also maybe to, yeah, to share, to be interdependent instead of just counter dependent or codependent. I was wanting a little bit more connection and sharing. So what would have made it more of a yes or a no? And it made a choice. Okay. So we kind of answered that, right? So I don't know if that helps you. It's a really, sometimes certain things are just really difficult to make decisions around. And sometimes they're so difficult because you're making a decision you've never done before. You've never said no to this thing. You never said yes to this thing. You never left it kind of undefined, but with a boundary, right? So that's where it's a little bit of a test. So I have a video on YouTube that is about this, and we have like 15 minutes. This is about 10 minutes. Actually, it's 11 minutes. I would love for you to watch it. I'm just gonna try to escape out of here. So I don't know if you're gonna be able to hear it. Let's see. Uh, ch- 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 Not sure. Oop, sorry, I'm trying to figure out if you're going to be able to hear it. Probably not. So I'd say watch it on your own. Sorry about that, but it is 10 minutes, so it's going to take a little while to do. Okay. I'm like trying to find it. Where'd it go? Okay. Hi again. Okay, so here we are. We're going to share. Um, it's weird. Like disappeared off my screen. Um, okay. That's not what I want to share. I don't know where it went. Not that one. Not that one. Maybe this one. I think I X'd out of it by accident. Okay. Hmm. Well, I'll just sorry about that. Okay. Okay. So we did all of that. We did this. We did the video. Okay. So I want to talk about attachment styles and how it's related to what I do, to confidence, to dealing with people, to understanding yourself. So in the confidence toolkit for people pleasers, the first tool is take inventory. And that's where you learn your attachment style. And the reason is because you want to understand where you are now so that you can move towards secure. And secure, like I said, is synonymous with confidence. It's synonymous with rest and digest. It's synonymous with intuition and your knowing. So, and that's where we want to get you so that your decisions are really authentically you. Okay. So let me give you some clues about uh, your attachment style so that you can understand how it relates to what we've been talking about. So starting off with wounds, even though you don't need to, but it kind of gives you an idea of like what's happening in the background, right, of your subconscious and why you start doing what you do. It's because these are the wounds of that dominate a attachment style. So if you know what your attachment style, if you like really resonate with one of these wounds, that probably will tell you you're probably in that area occasionally or more often. Doesn't mean you're 100% one attachment style. And we fluctuate, right? Based on what we're challenged with. But we tend to have one primary and possibly a secondary. And of course, sometimes we act in very secure ways. So you might be like 25% secure, you know, I'm not going to do the math here, right? um, and like 25% dismiss or fearful avoidant, and then the rest anxious preoccupied. That's very possible. Okay, so anxious preoccupied wounds are usually in the realm of, and not always all this, but they're the main ones are I am not good enough, I will be abandoned, I am unloved, I'm unlovable, I'm unliked, that kind of thing. Dismissive avoidant wounds are I'm unsafe. Now, all of them, not secure attachment, but all of them also have unsafe, but their primary is I'm unsafe, I'm defective, I will be trapped. Vulnerability is weakness. I'm weak. Fearful avoidance are I will be betrayed. I'm unworthy. I am powerless. I'm unsafe again. Like I said, all three of them have unsafe. Now, secure attachment is less patterned and individual and more individualized by experience. So things might come up because you're around somebody who's anxious, preoccupied, or fearful avoidant, or dismissive avoidant, or just like something like, oh, I never experienced that before. And now I have to, but you have the tools. That's really the secure attached has some attunement to their emotions. They've learned some things from 0 to 2 or 0 to 8. But your attachment style tends to have been formed mainly from 0 to 2 years old. But it can be formed thereafter based on what I told you, the familiar and the ER. Okay, so look at some of these, and if one of them resonates, if in that story that you told yourself, you were like, oh, yeah, one of those wounds came up for me, then that's important information, especially if it's in cycle and repeat and looping. That tells you that it's probably something that's going to occur again. Anxious, preoccupied, emotional patterns are anxiety, overthinking, insecurity, desperation. Dismissive avoidant emotional patterns are numbness, irritation, withdrawal, and shutdown. Fearful avoidant emotional patterns are shame, overwhelm, guilt, emotional swings. Secure attachment is calm, confidence, openness, clarity. Oh, yeah, I wanted to show you, as you can see, secure attachment is calm, confidence, openness, and clarity, but it's also um like lost it again. It's also this calm, it's your rest and digest, like I said, it's your confidence. Um, oh, it's the part how I said emotions drive all your decisions. Well, yeah, that's true. But if your emotions are calm, then your decisions are logical. Like they match, right? Your conscious mind and your subconscious drive are matching because you're in line. And if really when you're not reticular activating system, but when your parasympathetic is on that fight or flight, that's because you're not calm. And if you're in sympathetic mode and you're calm, rest, and digest, then your decisions are way more clear and you can tap in to that space of knowing and feel very confident and trusting of that. Even if it like you make mistakes, it's fine. You know how to deal with that. So boundaries. Okay, now we're getting to boundaries, right? And then now how I said that consent or like yes and no, it's about consent, but it's also about boundaries. Like where do my limits lie? When do I say yes or no? Why is that? How do I know? So the anxious preoccupied boundaries avoid setting them to preserve connection, feels guilty when they do, and also gets kind of annoyed when other people do. They don't like they might press it a little bit more. Dismissive avoidant boundaries. They have strong outer boundaries, like really like big boundaries. Like they just might sweep them really quickly. They may avoid emotional vulnerable boundaries, meaning like first off, they won't talk about them most likely. If they do, it'll be like one sentence and then all of a sudden a year or something, it'll just appear. Oh, no longer seeing you. Told you I need space. It can be like very quick. Fearful avoidant. So they're kind of both. So they swing between no boundaries and explosive ones. And when they set boundaries, it's not just all action like the dismissive avoidant. It's definitely a struggle of consistency back and forth. And then all of a sudden they might get really angry and be explosive and then, do an ultimatum, weaponize their boundaries, whatever. Secure attachment boundaries. They're clear, they're assertive, they're respectful of others and themselves. But they also have to be known, right? They know them. It's really helpful. Okay, so I'm just going to give you really quick examples. And in my attachment style 1 hour workshop, I go through this also. So this is a repeat. You text an example of anxious preoccupied is you text a friend who doesn't respond for hours. You panic, you send them messages, you worry that they're upset. And when they reply normally later, you feel relief, but also embarrassed from your actions. Dismissive avoidant, a partner asks you to talk about your feelings and you feel cornered, get defensive, change the subject. Later, you replay the conversation, but never bring it up again and don't want it brought up again. Fearful avoidant, you're enjoying closeness with someone new, but suddenly feel unsafe. You pick a fight to create distance, then you feel guilty and text them 3 long paragraphs an hour later. Yeah, sounds a little, flip-floppy. Secure attachment. Your friend cancels plans last minute. You feel disappointed, tell them honestly, and suggest rescheduling. You don't spiral or assume it's about you. Wow. So some questions, we only have like 3 minutes. Why attachment theory? Attachment theory helps you understand why you do what you do. And you're able to understand others when you and or they are triggered due to your respective styles. It's also part of the first tool, the confidence toolkit, and the take inventory. It's like how to set you up right so you understand yourself, but also understand the problem that you're coming with to try to work with. So what is the confidence toolkit? The confidence toolkit for people pleasers has 7 tools you can use daily or as needed, built to become a habit. So that's why we say daily. So when challenges hit, you're ready. You've got them in your pocket. They're starting to get ingrained. And that's what it's for. That's what it's there for. So I'd love for you to sign up. Just go to raylifecoaching.com/free-resources. And I will be coming out with a new version preferably by September sometime. I'm also interested in people being beta testers of the new version. So if you're interested, feel free to email me at raylifecoaching. Ray at raylifecoaching.com. And Ray at reneebior.com. decode.com. I'll put that in the notes as well, in the comments. And if have some questions, maybe you have a problem that's hitting you right now, you want kind of quick information, quick results, you can have personalized help within a week's time. It's called the Confidence Hotline. Just go to my website again and work with me /confidence hotline. I think you can just do raylifecoaching.com /confidence hotline as well. It'll go straight there. And you'll have multiple options. If you have any questions, please leave comments or email me, and I'll put my email in the comments. And I think that's it. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me today. And I am going to try to unshare this somehow. There you are. Yeah, thank you for joining me today. And I am so happy to have you here. And if you have any questions, again, feel free to contact me at reneebior.com, or just leave a message in my DMs or comments. I'll see them. Thank you so much. Have a great day. We are done.